Good afternoon. Welcome to the Community and Neighborhood Services Committee meeting of October 5th, 2023. The committee liaison, Natalie Kessler, will provide information and instruction.
Thank you, Chair. While members of the public are able to attend meetings in person, this meeting is being televised and live streamed on the city's website, and Council Administration will continue to make arrangements for the public to comment using the Zoom webinar platform. Additionally, members of the public who wish to provide virtual testimony must enter the virtual speaking queue by raising their hand before the queue closes. The queue will close when the last virtual speaker has finished speaking or 5 minutes after in-person testimony ends, whichever occurs first. This will allow for better meeting management between the two platforms and ensure the committee is able to manage and conduct city's business. We appreciate the public's cooperation. Chair Campbell?
Thank you so much, Natalie. I will now call the Community and Neighborhood Services Committee meeting of Tuesday, October 5th, 2023 to order, and I will now call the roll. Councilmember Campillo?
Here.
Councilmember Whitburn?
Here.
I am also present, and Vice Chair Elo Rivera is excused and absent from today's meeting, had other things that he had to attend. So also attending our meeting today is Matt Ugagan of the Mayor's Office, Karen Lee from the City Attorney's Office, Baku Patel from the Independent Budget Analyst's Office, and Natalie Kessler, our committee liaison. Natalie, please continue with public comment instructions.
If you're attending in person and wish to speak on any items, please complete a speaker slip located at the entrance of chambers and place it at the box located at the speaker's lectern at the front of the room. Please do so in a timely manner to ensure proper meeting management, and come up to the reserved seats at the front of the room when your name is called, and be prepared to come up to the lectern in the order called. As a reminder, if you're here with us in chambers today, please silence your cell phones. In-person testimony will conclude before virtual testimony begins. Members of the public can join the webinar by computer, tablet, or smartphone by accessing the link which is listed online in the preamble language of the agenda on the city's website. To join the Zoom webinar by telephone, please dial 1-669-254-5252. When prompted, input webinar ID 160-990-0498#. This information is also available on the agenda. Please note that if you're watching via City TV 24 or online, there may be a delay, and please participate via the audio on your phone. Mute your TV or computer when it is your turn to speak. When I introduce the item you would like to comment on, please raise your hand by either tapping the raise your hand button on your computer, tablet, or smartphone, or press *9 on your phone. You'll be taken in the order in which you raise your hand. When it is your turn to speak, you will receive a pop-up notice to select to unmute your device. And if you've called in, please press *6 on your phone to unmute yourself. We will review these instructions briefly again when the public comment period on an item is open. Chair Campbell?
Thank you. A quorum is now present, and we will proceed with dispensing the approval of the committee actions of September 7, 2023. Natalie, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. The public comment period for the committee actions is now open. If you've joined the Zoom webinar online or by phone, please raise your hand at this time if you wish to speak on the committee actions of September 7th, 2023. And Chair, I have not received any speakers slips in chambers for the past committee actions, but I do have 2 hands raised in the virtual queue. And speakers will have 1 minute. Our first speaker is Lori Saldana. Please provide your comments.
Yes, thank you. At last month's meeting, there were a few comments regarding the provision of menstrual products in public restrooms. I have yet to see any update on that, and this has gone on now that requests have been made for information and details for several months, and I'm wondering if the committee will invite the Director of Parks and Recreation or ask the mayor's representative to provide a status report. Are these products that were allocated and funded in the previous fiscal year finally being provided? And if so, where can they be found? And how can members of the public get more information about the availability of these products that have already been funded and were just, according to the last statement, they were waiting for the dispensers to be available. So would appreciate a status update on that at some point. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chair, that does conclude public comment on the past committee actions.
Thank you. We will now vote on approval of the committee actions. Do I have a motion to approve the actions from September 7, 2023? Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Campillo and a second by Councilmember Whitburn, and so we will now take the vote using the voting screen.
Thank you, and Chair, that does pass 3-0 with Vice Chair Elo Rivera absent.
Thank you. We will now move to committee members, mayor, staff, city attorney, and independent budget analyst comment, if any. Hearing none, we will continue. Do we have any requests for continuance? Hearing none, we will continue with our discussion agenda. Natalie, please introduce item number 1.
Thank you. Item number 1, framework for municipal code amendments to address concerns with sidewalk vending and expressive activities. If you're in person, please be sure to have your speaker slip submitted for item 1. And if you're watching on City TV or the live stream online and would like to call into the meeting to speak, please call 1-669-254-5252. When prompted, the webinar ID is 160-990-0498#. And again, if you're on Zoom, please raise your hand to speak on this item if you wish by selecting the raise your hand button or by pressing *9 if by phone, and each speaker will have 1 minute. Chair Campbell?
Thank you. Today we will be presenting our municipal code amendments to the sidewalk vending ordinance that was originally passed in March of 2022. I've heard from constituent stakeholders and vendors themselves for the need to provide stronger enforcement. With the amendments, we aim to create an environment where permitted vendors can continue to flourish, providing valuable services and unique offerings to our residents. The amendments will also create a balance between protecting constitutional rights and maintaining public order while preserving the vibrant character of our communities in the city's public spaces and coastline. Leading the presentation today is my Chief of Staff, Venus Molina. Venus, please proceed.
Thank you, Councilmember Campbell, boss, and honorable committee members. Thank you for this opportunity. As the council member said, in this past year, we've recognized the need to revisit and amend the San Diego Municipal Code to address concerns with sidewalk vending and to accommodate comprehensive frameworks to address the First Amendment, sidewalk vending and impounding procedures for enforcement. Why are these amendments necessary? On May 17, 2022, the sidewalk vending ordinance was approved by the City Council. This ordinance established regulations and requirements for sidewalk vending throughout the City of San Diego. Enforcement of this ordinance began on June 22, 2022. However, in the past year, rogue unpermitted vendors have found ways to work around this ordinance. Therefore, we recognize the need to revisit and amend the San Diego Municipal Code to address concerns with sidewalk vending and to accommodate expressive activities while ensuring proper enforcement. The overview of the proposed amendments for expressive activity regulations. The primary goal of the proposed amendments is to strike a balance between protecting the First Amendment rights on the one hand and maintaining public safety, order, and accessibility on sidewalks, parks, and beaches on the other. This item highlights the key considerations and steps involved in amending the Muni Code for expressive activities. The definition of pure speech. The fullest extent of First Amendment protections apply to what courts consider pure speech, such as people who are speaking, proselytizing, or expressing religious, political, philosophical, or ideological messages, including handing out brochures that are not commercial ads. Artistic performances, vendors of inherently expressive items, i.e. books, newspapers, and art created by the vendor work, vendors of merchandise that is inextricably intertwined with a statement carrying a religious, political, philosophical, or ideological message. For example, a nonprofit environmental group selling shirts and buttons with messages about climate change. Examples of pure speech: clothing, stuffed animals, etc., sold as fundraiser by a nonprofit; original art sold by the artist; sale of books, music, paintings, photographs, sculpture, CDs, or recordings created by the vendor. Example of activities that are not considered pure speech by the courts include sales of handcrafts, including jewelry, pottery, shea butter, incense, and incense burners. A vendor just saying that a handcraft is expressive isn't enough to make the conduct expressive for purposes of First Amendment protections. But sales of these items may be protected pure speech if the totality of the facts suggest the vendor sales are inextricably intertwined with expression of a religious, political, philosophical, or ideological message. Time, place, and manner rules. Rules would apply to anyone engaged in protected First Amendment speech on city property. The proposed regulations would likely include a space limit similar to the 24 square foot limit applicable to sidewalk vendors. Proposed regulations would prohibit using or attaching equipment to city property, including city utilities, and could include provisions to ensure sidewalks and walkways are passable and safe for all people to use. Proposed regulations may address the use of amplification, umbrellas, shade structures, and other equipments. Identifying speech locations, designated areas within parks, plazas, and other high-traffic areas. The proposed regulations would also allow the city to identify certain speech locations in designated areas within parks, plazas, and other high-traffic areas where there's a need to set specific rules within the First Amendment framework for those areas. If the city established speech areas in a specific park, the proposed regulations would require speakers to use those areas only and would be available on a first-come, first-served basis. First Amendment areas would be limited to expressive activity and could not be used for sidewalk vending or other non-speech activities. Expressive activity regulations would apply to performers, buskers, First Amendment vendors, protesters, and any other speaker engaged in protective speech. Anyone who is not engaged in protected speech activities but is selling items on public property is a sidewalk vendor and must comply with the SVO. Impounding of sidewalk vending equipment. Why are stronger impounding procedures needed? The need for impounding procedures and increased enforcement measure arises from the challenges posed by rogue vendors who often disregard existing regulations and operate in a manner that disrupts public order and safety. These individuals have engaged in activities that obstruct sidewalks and create unsanitary conditions. Impounding provides a vital tool to swiftly address such issues by temporarily removing uncompliant vendors, equipment, or goods. These measures aim to strike a fair balance between safeguarding the rights of legitimate vendors and maintaining the integrity of public spaces. Currently, the sidewalk vending ordinance requires progressive enforcement as set forth by SB 946. Violations associated with any part of the ordinance have been subject to escalating fines as set forth in the table below. Proposed amendments for impounding mechanisms, adopting a stronger impounding process. The proposed amendments would remove the initial warning and replace it with a $100 fine for permitted vendors and $250 fine for unpermitted vendors. We're proposing the adoption of the impounding mechanism currently employed by the City of Orange that would allow immediate impound of a vendor's equipment or goods if the vendor poses certain public health and safety concerns, including vending food without a valid health permit. This is an example of the City of Orange Notice of Impound checklist. In here, any of the Munich codes listed here would be cause for immediate impounding, including a vendor that operates in violation and refuses to and fails to remove items within 30 minutes, refuses to provide ID, or is creating a substantial danger or environmental hazard. Who will be enforcing the proposed amendments? Enforcement will be conducted primarily by the San Diego Police Department, in addition to the City of San Diego's park rangers, on a proactive and responsive basis in areas of high concern for public health, safety, and welfare. We recommend and request District 2 staff work with the mayor and the city attorney to draft municipal code amendments to address concerns with sidewalk vending and expressive activities. We're open for questions, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Natalie, please proceed with public comment.
Thank you, Chair. The public comment period for item 1 is now open. If you've submitted a speaker slip, please be prepared to come up to the front of the room when your name is called. Each speaker will have 1 minute, and Chair, I did count. We currently have 30 speakers who have submitted speaker slips here in chambers. So we will begin with those 30 speakers. We will begin with Larry Webb. And Larry Webb, you've been seated time by Andrew Choitner. Mr. Choitner, can you please raise your hand? Okay, great. So you will have 2 minutes. Please begin.
Thank you, council members. Larry Webb, I'm the Mission Beach Town Council President, member of the Coastal Coalition. While we're in favor of some of the changes and many of the changes in the ordinance, the Coastal Coalition strongly believes that all commercial activity should be banned from San Diego shoreline parks and beaches. The state of California bans commercial vending activities from state parks and beaches. If the state is allowed to do so under SB 946, the city of San Diego should certainly be allowed to do so as well to protect the public access to our city's beaches and parks. All commercial activity is banned or supposed to be banned in Mission Beach Park, which the city has ignored for the last 5 years. There was a voter-approved initiative in 1987. It's included in the San Diego Municipal Code as 63.50, which bans all commercial activity in Mission Beach Park. This is a voter-approved initiative. I don't think the city can just ignore a voter-approved initiative, not legally anyway. It's in the Mission Beach Precise Plan, the local use plan for Mission Beach. You cannot allow commercial activity in Mission Beach. It is encouraging that the city is proposing stronger regulations on vendors and to confiscate their equipment. But I've been told this isn't going to take into effect until next year. Our downtown small businesses are under assault almost daily by rogue vendors. You need to start enforcement of that today. If the state wants to come back and say, hey, that's against State Bill 946, let the state explain to the public why illegal rogue vendors are allowed to rule our streets. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next speaker is Michael Trimble, followed by Catherine Douglas, followed by Wendy Mattis.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Michael Trimble. I'm the Executive Director of the Gaslamp Quarter Association. I'd like to express my support for the proposed amendments to the City of San Diego Sidewalk Vending Ordinance. This amendment is a crucial step in addressing the severe negative health and safety impacts that have been plaguing the Gaslamp Quarter, Ballpark District, East Village, and Little Italy neighborhoods. The current ordinance does not address the rogue vendors that have been vending in the no vending zone for the past year. The business community and visitors to the Gaslamp have endured this for too long, and it's time to enforce the laws that we all approved last May. I respectfully request you move this item to the City Council for approval as soon as possible. The City of Orange serves as a valuable reference point, having successfully managed sidewalk vending by implementing impoundment criteria. These criteria, as outlined in their approved amendment ordinance, provide a comprehensive framework to safeguard public safety, cleanliness, and the rule of law. Equally as important to entrust to the San Diego Police Department to enforce. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Catherine Douglas, followed by Wendy Mattis, followed by Joyce Anyata.
Good afternoon, Catherine Douglas, Coastal Coalition. Too many ordinances vetted by the city attorney and passed by City Council have resulted in unnecessary dress rehearsals, requiring a return to the drawing board. This is not rocket science. 18 months in, and we're still struggling with this ordinance to the detriment of hardworking San Diegans who have the implicit right to enjoy our shoreline parks and beaches without any commercial activity impeding pathways, green space, and views. Ban all commercial activity from shoreline parks and beaches, mirror national and state park rules, period, end of sentence. The new impound approach, eliminating warnings for the first offense, is great. Education, enough education, time for citation. Respect our enforcement personnel who need concise guidelines to do their jobs. Vending wares and expressive activity do not belong in the same sentence, period. T-shirts and plushies are wares and not inextricably. Thank you.
Thank you. This does conclude your time. Our next speaker is Wendy Mattis, followed by Joyce Anyata, followed by Melissa Schultzman.
Hello, thank you for your time. I am a San Diego native, born and raised in San Diego, and my concern is equity in that I keep hearing the word commercial being used. Yes, commercial enterprises should get permits and vend where they're legal to vend. But as a child, my parents took me to Balboa Park, and I saw jugglers and magicians and stuff. And I took my children there, and I currently take my grandchildren there. And when my oldest granddaughter moves back to Southern California, I'll take my great-grandchildren there. And I don't want to see the end of performances in Balboa Park. From an equity standpoint, that's something that's available to poor people. You might not be able to afford to go in the museums and see the planetarium and stuff, but you can walk around and see the beauty of Balboa Park and see performers, and I would not want to see that end. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Joy Sunyata. I believe she stepped out for a moment. We will go to Melissa Schultzman, and you've been seated time by Travis Heron. Travis, can you please raise your hand? Thank you. So Melissa, you will have 2 minutes. After Melissa, we'll have Peter Soto, followed by Letty Soto.
Good afternoon. I Googled the meaning of creative expression, and it says follows: the freedom to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas of all kinds in the form of art. I'm a balloon twister and a face painter. My partner, Travis, is a balloon twister. We're both on the autism spectrum. It's one of the only things we can do to make things meet where SSI does not. But we don't charge prices. We simply ask donations. We never turn a child away. I have been in Balboa Park now for 15 years, and number 20 on the list of regulations is no balloons. And we're told that face painting is being added. We're going to lose our livelihood. Children are going to lose that one-on-one attention that some of them so desperately need. Besides that, ever since the Panama Exposition in 1915, there have been street performers. There have been artists in Balboa Park to make it so that we can't use reasonable amplification for a dance routine or as a little bit of background music with our instruments. It's uncalled for. All we ask is for a few dollars being tossed in, or whatever you can do. If you can't do anything, we're not upset. We're happy to be appreciated, because for us it's also a form of self-therapy. We need this. And it would be a shame to take this away from the kids. It'd be a shame to take it away from those of us who need it for our livelihood and our therapy. And on behalf of all street performers, it's our amendment rights. It's constitutional. To take it away is a shame.
Thank you. Thank you for your concluding statement. Our next speaker is, okay.
Let me just remind you that we have so many speakers, we don't have time for applause. If you really want to express appreciation, please go like this, and then we can just continue and roll along. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Peter Soto, followed by Letty Soto, followed by Palma Freddy.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having us here today. We are in favor for this new changes in the ordinance because we work outside. We are the legal vendors. And these guys come, they take over the plaza, they make it a mess, and they are violent people. We need this ordinance to pass, and it has to be right away. We can't wait another year. Our business is suffering. We're about to shut down. This has to be 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Letty Soto, followed by Palma Freddy, followed by Danny Nissan.
Hi, committee members. Thank you for having us. I am just really exhausted with these 5 years of pleading for enforcement. I want to thank Venus for bringing this up to City Council and for the public to know that as a Hispanic person selling hot dogs, it hasn't been easy for me. The interference from these torturous illegal vendors has put my family almost to keys. I don't know if we're gonna survive another month, yet alone another day. Friday, September 29th, We were again attacked. I have video and photos. I don't think we're asking for very much. If we're all doing it the legal way, why is all the other vendors, and I'm speaking about vendors selling food, items, doing anything on the city sidewalks? It's a public health. There's pathogens that could grow within 2 hours. I mean, they're blocking sidewalks, and they're very aggressive vendors. Please,
Thank you.
don't wait.
Thank you. This does conclude your time. Our next speaker is Palma Freddy, followed by Danny Nissan, followed by Taylor Locke.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Freddy Palma, and I run a restaurant on Fifth Avenue between F and G. Unfortunately, I am in the middle of the street. In the corner on my right side, there are 3, 4, sometimes 5 street vendors. On the left side, there is 5, sometimes 7, sometimes 3 street vendors. Whenever the customer comes, I don't have any business. Leading this situation as it is like having a taxi driver that doesn't have an inspection, no smoke check, no license. Too dangerous, too irresponsible, too unfair for drivers who has all the requirements. These guys move from corner to corner whenever they see a police. Unfortunately, they are trying to find a job. Probably they need to try to find a job somewhere else, but it's not the right spot they are looking for. And I only see one solution. It's taking away their equipment.
Thank you. This does
Nothing
conclude
else,
your time.
unfortunately.
Thank you. Next is Danny Nissan, followed by Taylor Locke, followed by Maria Cito.
Good afternoon. My name is Danny. I own a coffee shop on Gas Lamp on 6th Avenue. I opened during the pandemic, worked my sweat and blood in there, me and my family and my wife. Every day we're attacked by those illegal vendors. They break our windows. They leave us no business. We pay rent. We have other stuff to pay for. We feed our family. You don't understand the struggle we go through. You guys need to take serious action towards that. I grew up most of my life in San Diego. I remember Gaslamp being beautiful, a place to be. Now no one wants to go there because it's all full of hot dog vendors and danger. I grew up here. I went to school here. I am an educated person. I am an immigrant. I am a refugee. There is a way of living in this country to do it in the right way. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Taylor Locke, followed by Maria Cito, followed by Josh Coyne.
Hello, thanks for having me. I just want to say I think the freedom of speech zones are unconstitutional. Kind of defeats the purpose of freedom of speech, kind of. And implementing those 27 spaces and like sticking to that kind of limits art and culture in Balboa Park. And I think if you limit art and culture in Balboa Park is just going to be a bunch of buildings and bridges. Buildings and bridges are good. It's nice to have nice things like that. But what's the point of a building if there's no one inside gathering and celebrating something or doing something? What's the point of a bridge if it's not bringing people together? You know, and there's not a lot of people going to Balboa Park anymore because there's not a lot of street performers and there's more homeless people than there are street performers. If you take away the art and culture of a park, it kind of taken out, oh my gosh, that was a quick minute. That's my time, thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Marius Cito. Please approach the lectern. You'll be followed by Josh Coyne.
Gentlemen, thank you for your time. Obviously, speaking about the vending, we're losing our businesses of the vending. We've been fighting this case, I think, for the past 3 years. We keep, approaching you in different directions through social media, news channels, emails. There's a lot of restaurant owners, they don't want to attend, they'll be scared because they don't know how these street vendors are dangerous. Talking about the music, I think music has nothing to do with the street vending. Music is a language that the whole world will speak about and makes people happy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And our next speaker is Josh Coyne, followed by Dominique Lemandry.
Good afternoon, Chair Campbell and committee members. I'm Josh Callery-Coyne. I'm here on behalf of the Downtown San Diego Partnership to express our full support for this item. Thank you to Venus, the council member, and the City Attorney's Office for taking the lead on this issue. We have confidence that the framework presented today will significantly reduce the additional workload of our clean and safe team, who currently face angry business owners and pedestrians, often left with the work of cleaning up food waste, trash, residue, and grease left behind by unauthorized illegal food vendors, deterring from our routine safety and maintenance work. And while the framework does provide clarity, it is essential that enforcement is consistently communicated and dedicated to enforce these matters in the downtown area. And I want to thank Captain Jordan and the Central Division for consistently listening to our many calls and emails to address this issue. So with that, we will ask for dedicated funding to downtown enforcement, as well as additional language in the amendments to include accountability for companies bringing their folks to San Diego with illegal products. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Dominique Lemandry, followed by Diana Pitts, followed by William Dorsett.
Good afternoon, excuse me, council members. My name is Dominic Lemandry. I'm the district manager for the East Village Association. The East Village Association represents over 700 businesses in the East Village part of downtown San Diego, and I'm here today to voice my support for the passage of these amendments to the ordinance, as well as a show of support and solidarity with our business owners in the Gaslamp, Little Italy, and downtown wide. As you know, council passed an ordinance last year to put some rules around the sidewalk vending that was happening citywide, and they called out certain designated zones within that ordinance: Little Italy, the Gaslamp, parts of East Village around the Ballpark District. And unfortunately, we haven't seen the measure of enforcement that we really need to get a handle on the situation and really to decrease the instances of public safety hazards in downtown. So that's why I speak today to voice my support for this ordinance amendment, and I urge you to consider it promptly. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Diana Pitts, followed by William Dorsett, followed by Joyce Senyata.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Diana Pitts, Vice President of Public Affairs for the San Diego Padres. We are here in strong support of the proposed amendments to the sidewalk vending ordinance and would like to thank Councilmember Campbell and Venus for their continued leadership on this issue. Over the last several years, we have consistently voiced our concerns over the unsafe conditions that have been caused by certain vendors in the Ballpark District. We have now had multiple incidents involving fires sparked by rogue vendors, along with hot grease spills and fights that pose significant threats to public safety. These incidents not only endanger our fans, but also place a burden on our employees. We also have serious concerns related to the unsanitary cooking conditions that many of these vendors operate under. The potential impact on public health cannot be understated. Additionally, the aggressive behavior that many of these vendors have displayed towards our employees and city code enforcement officers underscores the need for PD to have the ability to intervene and enforce the ordinance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is William Dorsett, and you've been seated time by 4 other individuals. I need them to raise their hand here in chambers. Daniel Nielsen. Thank you. Michael Heigman. Let's see, I see Daniel. Is Michael available? Okay. And then Jesse Mock. Jesse. Okay, sorry. How about Chet Harrison?
His minutes to me, Jesse said. There you go.
So 5 minutes. Okay, so you'll be given 5 minutes.
All right. I was going to speak a lot longer, but not enough people were able to show. 6 days is really not enough time to gather people. Y'all really slid this under the rug, so not enough people could get here. I feel kind of cheated by that. Otherwise, some of the stuff I agree with. Some of it is very positive for the people that own businesses, and I feel for some of those people. Don't know why you're running Buskers in with this. Why are we paying the price for what rogue vendors have done? You guys had all the information over a year ago. I gave it to you. I passed it forward. I forwarded the information over and over and over through Parks and Rec, through all of your offices, emails. I've called. You had the information to prevent this from happening, but you rushed because of the business owners rushing you. And because of your rushing, you missed that you made the code unconstitutional for First Amendment rights by being too broad. You put the city in liable situation for lawsuits because you rushed this ordinance out a year ago. Please don't do this right now. Don't rush it out. Understand what constitutional rights are and how you are particularly violating them currently with the way that you're writing some of these laws. For example, the free speech zones. You can do that in limited public forum and non-public forum, like educational centers and military centers. But in traditional public forum, you're stepping over a couple of constitutional rights, the First Amendment and the 14th Amendment. You need to be real careful with that. There are lawyers standing by watching all this as it plays out right now. You shouldn't be putting these things two together as if they're one thing. First Amendment rights is a national, federal thing. We are protected by it, all of us. Do you want to be put in a free speech zone? Stephen, do you want to be put in a free speech zone? How about you? Would you like to only be able to talk in a free speech zone? Would you like only your politics to happen in a free speech zone? What would that mean if you got $250 citation, $1,000 citation for talking outside of those zones? Because that's what you're doing to us. That's what you're doing to expressive activities. And there are lawyers standing by waiting to see what you do. There's been offers for you to work with us. We've offered over and over and over again. Not too many calls are coming in to sit down at the table and actually discuss these things. I have packets of court cases. I have tons of information to help guide you, and I'll guide you. City attorney seems to be dropping the ball. She passed a broad code. Sean Olivero Rivera and her have problems right now because of how she's not handling civil issues. That's all over the news. Made this cartoon about Balboa Park back when Rangers were kicking us in our teeth for just being there performing along El Prado, a place we've been for a long time. In this picture, it says amplification is banned in the park. And this little duck here says, but I'm just cracking jokes. That's how some of us feel. Jesse, the magician over here. Jesse, will you stand up real quick, sir? He's a magician. He's kind of acquired a voice. He can't be heard without an amplifier. I've actually stood at the back of his crowd, miss his jokes, can't hear him. There are several other people here that, even with an amplifier, have trouble speaking. Melissa over here, I could barely hear her, and she's got an amplified voice right here. You're not considering the people that make this city vibrant for everyone else, for the tourists, for the people that come around. Even these businesses, when you have artists and musicians and buskers in front of them, it draws people into the businesses. We're not out here like hot dog mafia. We're not trying to take over the streets. We're just trying to express our First Amendment rights and hopefully get a little appreciation for our time in the process. Why are you throwing us under the bus for your mistakes? We don't deserve this. First Amendment rights don't deserve this. You're not just hurting us buskers and artists. There are tons of civil rights groups that you're hurting with this. There are religious groups that you're hurting with this. There are political groups you are hurting with this. Don't be villains. Be the good guys. Hold your oaths of office true and stand up for the First Amendment. It's what you signed when you got into the office. So I'm asking you today, pass what you need for these guys to make them happy, but consider our feelings too. We're here expressing them now. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Joyce Inyata, followed by Keith Wolf, followed by Becky Hostetter.
Thank you so much for allowing me to speak. Joyce Inyata, District 3. Thank you, Chair Campbell and all others. You are giving this the due diligence it deserves. To all the public I have heard speak, I wish I could have a long conversation with each of you and hear your whole story. Years ago, I had a small business I loved, and I had to follow rules and regulations that were tough. I encourage you to continue to love what you do while you adapt and fit into your community. Love to all.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Keith Wolf, followed by Becky Hostetter, followed by Aubriana Robinson.
Hi, my name is Keith Wolf. I've been street performing in San Diego for over 28 years. I've been arrested so many times that I couldn't even tell you how many times. I was looking at one time being struck out for fake juggling knives in my backpack after being arrested 14 times by the same officer. I feel like I've been reduced to peonage here for trying to bring light to the city. And I do agree that the hot dogs do hurt the businesses here. And I do agree that the sound can be a problem at times. And I don't think that an amplification ban is necessary, but I think most cities have a decibel limit, and I think that can easily be fixed with a 15-watt limit or something like that on your amp, and you can register it at the park. Problem is that you can't get to this guy here in the park. They won't even let you in that building. And I'm sure these California coastal commissions have no problem with commercial activity when it's Bay Fest and they're making a bunch of money off of the beer.
Thank you. This does conclude your time. Thank you. Our next speaker is Becky Hostetter, followed by Aubriana Robinson, followed by Joe Dreams.
Hello, my name is Becky Hostetter. I'm a third-generation San Diego native, and I'm a part of a family of artists and creatives. Clearly, there are two separate issues here. The gas lamp has severe problems going on. I get it. However, that has nothing to do with artists and performers who should be able to show their art and be able to do that publicly in public spaces, including the beaches and the parks. Please reconsider what you're doing and go after what needs to be gone after and give us our First Amendment rights to be able to express our art. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Aubriana Robinson, followed by Joe Dreams, followed by Chris Gomez. Aubriana? Okay.
I'm Aubriana Robinson. I'm a cartoonist at Balboa Park, and I have been since November of 2020. I do believe that it is okay to have specific rules to keep things clean and orderly, but only if they are aware of the rights, and in this case, the First Amendment. In conclusion, or in summary, work with us so that we can work with you. I understand that this is tough because what defines expressive art, and for now to help with anything, a vendor is someone who sells something from a store such as hot dogs or pop culture merch, and buskers work for tips. We're not purposely trying to cause any disturbances, and there needs to be more understanding of everything so that they can work for everyone, including the rangers. Please work with us so that we can work for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Joe Dreams, followed by Chris Gomez.
I know you think I'm gonna ruin your peace and quiet, and no matter what proposal I make, you'll probably fight it. But San Diego was the city I reside in, one to make the kicks excited, not worry about getting cited. So let me sing, I promise you'll love it. Maybe even put a $100 bill in my bucket. So instead of calling the cops, let's have a discussion. And instead of writing the ticket, write me into the budget. I want some change, but I don't know who to turn to. I'm tired of this 11 p.m. curfew. We need some more free speech zones, and I don't mean a mile away from where all the people go. So let us sing, let us dance, let us draw, let us do magic tricks, coolest things you ever saw. Let us chalk, let us talk with some amplified sounds, not in 619 years, right now.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Chris Gomez, followed by Brian Bratt, followed by Gina Barwick.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Chris Gomez. I am the district manager for Little Italy Association. We are in full support of this. The amendment staff are recommending to move forward to city council. The one recommendation or request we would like to make is that on page 3 of the staff report, the first paragraph, our top sentence in the first paragraph, change the word may to shall. So it would read proposed regulations shall address, etc. The other thing we would like to seek clarification on is page 3, third paragraph, is those parties, who, whether performer buskers, First Amendment vendors, protesters, or any other speaker engaged in protected speech that are collecting funds via sales of CDs or other items or collecting tips should be considered commerce and deemed a sidewalk vendor. Those parties should be held to the same requirements the SVO ordinance calls for sidewalk vending. On page 3, second to last paragraph, seek clarification in cases where amplified equipment. Thank you.
Thank you. This does conclude your time. Our next speaker is Brian Bratt, and followed by Brian, we have 3 additional speakers in chambers. Brian?
Hi guys, my name is Brian Bratt. I like to sing on the street sometimes, and I feel like I just followed a guy that made me angry. Anyways, what I want to share today is I worked at SeaWorld for like the past year and really loved it, and I currently don't work there. And I think I'm really good for business there, and ever since I left, the stock has only gone down, and when I'm working, it only goes up. So that's what I'm here to share today. Brian Bratt for SeaWorld. Thanks.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Gina Barwick, followed by Juliana Spencer, followed by Paula.
Hi, I'm just going to read this. Trust me, it's better this way. My name is Gina Borowick, a lifelong law-abiding native San Diegan. As a recent recipient of a warning for vending in a high-traffic area, followed by a $500 fine to the same effect, I have, as an artist, become collateral damage. This comes after being fully vetted by 4 of the rangers in the last 2 years. Firstly, I am not a vendor, but an artist who sells by donation while working on my craft. Secondly, I've been setting up without harassment for 4 years in the same 2 recessed areas furthest from the wall overlooking the children's pool. It is not a bike path, nor am I encroaching on any walkway. If it were about my location, the other artists would have been fined, yet weren't. I am a sculptor of stone, shell, coral, and many other materials, and have freestanding sculptures of hearts, for example, that carry a positive message of survival and hope. As they themselves have survived the dangerous edge of the grinding wheels, which is how each one acquires its unique design.
Thank you.
Daughter of a Proclamation Day person, I'm aiming.
Sorry, your time has concluded. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Juliana Spencer, followed by Paula.
Good afternoon. I'm representing SB 946, as it is for the low-class individuals that don't have credit to go along and participate on the real estate market for the moment. It's a lot of times a temporary condition, but cannot be taken away from the low class that are entrepreneurs and trying to provide for themselves to raise from poverty. Of course, there are goods and bads on every market, and this market can take a lot of respect. Work with us. We will be able to work with you, providing sales tax and everything that is needed. Not everybody needs to be in front of another business. There is a long park and beach and everything that is not on the sidewalk. As you folks are giving us a solution to get out of the beach and go to the street, that is going to inflict with somebody else that has got a store there or maybe just live there. We found places that are reasonable at the beach. There is no problems with that as long as you're not providing bad merchandise.
Thank you. And our final speaker is Paula.
Hi, council members. I'm Paula, and I'm a face painter down in Balboa Park. I have come down here to let you know that a lot of the people that walk through the park talk to me. They ask me directions where things are. But the main thing I want to tell you is that they always say, we're so glad you buskers and vendors are here. We come to the park because you guys are here. And then one lady, I got it on video, but my phone broke. I was going to show you, but she said it's a family tradition that we come down here, we get our face painted by you. I have painted many children's faces over the years from the time they're 5 to they're 14. So these people are out here to see us. They really are. And then they get to go to the museums and whatever else they're doing there. We're a great asset to Balboa Park, and I hope that we get to stay there. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chair, that does conclude in-person testimony, although I will say for the record, I did receive a speaker slip from Ruth Winter, who wishes to register her position in opposition but does not wish to speak. That being said, we will move to the virtual queue, and currently I have 7 hands raised. We will begin with and I will begin the 5-minute timer for all callers who wish to speak on this item. I will begin with Tracy DeZenzo. Tracy, please begin your comments.
Hi, Tracy DeZenzo. I live in Ocean Beach. While governments have the right to establish time, place, and manner stipulations on vending, it is not within the scope of the government to decide what qualifies as art or artistic expression. I caution using language that places art into categories of pure speech versus handcrafts, as many handcrafters would consider themselves artists. Museums are filled with handcrafts and folk art that would not necessarily fall under your pure speech category, but are unequivocally art, unquestionably art. I encourage you to review White versus the City of Sparks 2007 that recognized that artistic work does not have to carry a religious, political, philosophical, or ideological message to be considered freedom of expression. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next speaker is John Leake. John Leake, please provide your comments. John Leake, I cannot unmute you, but I have given you permission to speak. Okay, we can come back to you. We will go next to Lori. Oh, there you are. Yes, please begin.
All right, thank you very much. I can't. This is a problem at the state level. You cannot do this here. You have to go back and change SB 946 and that falls on the members of the California legislature from this area to initiate. Are any of them here? I recently was called as a witness for a trial of one vendor with 3 citations, one of which had never been turned in. Then when I finally came back, the Rangers didn't show up. The case was dismissed. It had to be on an orders from the Parks Department to those Rangers. Do not show up to trial. Don't let yourself be interrogated.
Thank you, Mr. Leake. That does conclude your time. Our next speaker is Lori Saldana.
I agree with previous speakers who have tried to explain the hazards, both the moral hazards, constitutional and legal hazards, of mixing constitutional First Amendment rights with vendors and commercial activities. You may create rules legally to limit vendors who are engaged in commercial activities, but you cannot restrict Americans' First Amendment rights. And that is what you were trying to slide under the radar by combining these two issues. These need 2 agenda listings, one to deal with the expression and the art and music and other ways of expressing their First Amendment legal rights, and the other with vendors and permitting and licenses that have to do with public safety and health. Why in the world is this committee combining these 2 items? If you're trying to avoid scrutiny, I think you are in fact creating more of it.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Bob Evans. Bob Evans, please provide your comments.
Hello. The public doesn't need more crowded commercial spaces and zones in its high-traffic coastal parks and beaches. The state of California and the National Park Service, they both prohibit all types of commercial activities in its natural parks and beaches. For example, Washington, D.C.'s National Mall doesn't allow any commercial or First Amendment type of merchandise vending there. New York City's Central Park, the nation's most prized and visited of urban parks, doesn't allow any sidewalk merchandise vending activity in its park. The authors of SB 946 understand the importance of preserving parks, and they write into the bill that a local authority can prohibit commercial activity as necessary to ensure the public's use and enjoyment of natural resources. We're asking to keep the city's coastal parks and beaches removed from any and all forms of commercial merchandise activities with no exemptions and no exceptions for any entity. And coastal parks should remain dedicated for recreation.
This does conclude your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Blair Beekman. Blair, please provide your comments.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. Thank you for public comment today. Thank you for having this item here today, actually. I've been talking very nicely about how I think problems can be solved in the Balboa Park area. It has escaped me that, it's because of the new vending ordinance things. It's why things are going on in Balboa Park the way they are now. I really hope that with this item here today, that there's really good dialogue and conversation going on, that, you know, for as important as a vending contract or vending new ideas can be, they really got to seek input from the community and from the, you know, the artistic community of Balboa Park, and really be open about that process at this time. I think something can be worked out very well. It's just a matter of having those conversations, and I really hope city government will have those conversations. And I think you're hearing that people are interested in applying to the permit process. I hope they can facilitate a good permitting process for
Thank you,
everyone.
Blair. That does conclude your time. And Chair, we have 2 more callers in the virtual queue because the 5-minute timer has concluded. So we will take no more remaining callers after these 2. Our next speaker is Chris Dugan. Please provide your comments.
Good afternoon, Chris Duggan on behalf of the California Restaurant Association, San Diego chapter. We'd like to register our full support for the sidewalk vending amendment framework before you. Special thank you to Councilmember Campbell and her Chief of Staff, Venus Molina, for all their hard work on this item. CRA firmly believes street vending is part of the fabric of San Diego's growing food culture, and one of our primary goals is to promote and enhance small business opportunities and local entrepreneurs. With that said, over 3 years ago, CRA, along with dozens of community stakeholders, came together, many of which are in the room today, to create a fair and balanced sidewalk vending ordinance. Unfortunately, as with many positive pieces of public policy that go before you, there are individuals that are going to blatantly skirt the rules of the road and thumb their nose at existing law. It is for this reason that today's framework is so important and should be moved to full city council as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final speaker in the queue is Rocky. Rocky, please provide your comments.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Yes, I'd like to speak to the woulda, coulda, but didn't committee. While you're linking these 2 together, vendors and First Amendment right people, would you put a tennis court right in the middle of the children's pool? No, you wouldn't. These 2 things shouldn't be linked either. I noticed a lot of people that were with the gas lamp and Padre Park and all the other places supported it. But did they support taking away First Amendment rights from people? Also, in your list of things that weren't covered as First Amendment protected activities, jewelry making and pottery. Those are arts. Why would pottery or jewelry making not be included in art? Also, I don't know what shea butter is, but do you put it on yourself or do you cook with it? I'm not sure. Thank you very much. And let's see, I got 5 seconds. That's about it. Thank you. Have a nice day from the East Coast.
Thank you. And Chair, that with no more speakers in the virtual queue, this will conclude public testimony on item 1.
Thank you. And thank you, Venus, so much for the presentation. And thank you to the public and to everyone who's here for your input. This is just so wonderful to hear from all of you. Thank you. And I want to thank all of the staff members from various city departments who are here, because so many departments are involved in this. So thank you for coming. And if we have any questions on council for them, they are here to help us. And a special thanks to the mayor's office. Thank you. And so I hope that our amendments that we're working on will give enforcement team, all our enforcement teams, the tools that they need to ensure that the rogue vendors comply with the law, and if they don't, that they're not in business any longer, because it isn't right for people who do follow the rules and are trying to get ahead and do something good for the public to have to suffer. So we are definitely engaged in helping to make it clear and possible for the enforcement of these rules. As far as free speech and buskers, we love you. This is American as apple pie. And don't worry, we are following all the court cases and the laws to make sure that this will be properly protected. And so with that, I would like to make a motion to request that my staff work with the Mayor and City Attorney's Office to draft municipal code amendments to address the concerns with the sidewalk vending and expressive activities that have come up in the year and a half that this law has existed. We always try to make our ordinances such that they can be revisited and fixed as time goes on, and we see what needs to be done to help them. And so I'll now turn it over to my committee members for any questions or comments, and to see if we could get a second to my motion. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Chair Campbell. And thank you to you and your Chief of Staff, Ms. Molina, as well as to Ms. Gloria on your team for bringing this item forward today. Entrepreneurship and First Amendment rights are part of the American way. We must honor them and we must protect them. We also need to protect public safety and preserve order and ensure that our sidewalks and parks and beaches are accessible. There are a couple of different kinds of activities that we're discussing today, buskers and street vending. And a question has been raised a couple of times about why we're considering them at the same time. It's because buskers are making the legitimate point that they have First Amendment rights, and they do, and we need to accommodate that. But there are also some street vendors, not all, but some street vendors out there who are refusing to follow any rules as they sell hot dogs and are claiming that they have a First Amendment right to sell hot dogs on the sidewalk without any restrictions. So one issue is, are hot dog vendors engaging in the same kind of First Amendment protected activity as buskers? Well, I think most buskers would argue that they are engaging in expression that has greater protection. So that is why we have to evaluate whether there is a difference between what the First Amendment protects for buskers as opposed to hot dog vendors. We are not equating the two. In fact, we are pointing out the differences. And I think that that is something that will inure to the benefit of the buskers. One activity that we're discussing, of course, is accommodating the buskers in Balboa Park and elsewhere. My office has heard concerns from buskers who want to be able to perform or express themselves in a safe and legal way. And the framework that we're discussing today moves us a step forward toward having clear rules that offer a reasonable balance of the interests in front of us. And it should be noted that this is a framework. What we'll be voting on today is asking Councilmember Campbell and her office to work with the mayor's office and the city attorney to draft an ordinance that accommodates the various interests and follows the Constitution. One question, Ms. Molina, in addition to working with the mayor's and the city attorney's offices, will you also be working with other stakeholders, including the buskers, as you draft an ordinance?
Absolutely, and thank you for mentioning that this is a framework, and part of why we're bringing this to committee is to hear from the public, to hear from our community, and absolutely the buskers, the artists, everybody involved, so that we can create an ordinance that's going to be fair for everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Molina. The second situation that we're discussing is having enforceable rules around street vending on downtown sidewalks and elsewhere in our city, and I appreciate all your work to bring this forward because it has been a terrible problem in many of our downtown neighborhoods. As we have heard today, it's been a dangerous situation. And it has resulted in injuries to people at various times. It cannot continue. The status quo is simply not okay. I do have a question about enforcement as you draft this ordinance. A lot of the violations of the vending ordinance in downtown so far have occurred on nights and on the weekends. Is it your understanding that we will have enough of an enforcement presence on nights and weekends to make this effective?
So I will actually pivot to the mayor's office, Matt Yagan, to answer that question.
Thank you for the question, Councilmember Whitburn. Matt Yagan, Deputy Director of Policy with the Mayor's Office. The Mayor's Office is going to work with the San Diego Police Department, particularly our Central Division, to ensure that we have the resources and the bodies needed to be able to enforce this ordinance downtown.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yagan. I, for one, very much look forward to enabling people to enjoy the expressive activities in Balboa Park while at the same time being able to enjoy the sidewalks in our downtown, and I'm happy to second the ordinance.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Campillo.
Thank you, Chair Campbell, and thank you, Ms. Molina, for your presentation and for starting the conversation again so we can close a lot of the loopholes that have been exploited from the first iteration of this ordinance. I think many of the members of the public expressing the the value and quality that they bring to various communities, including Balboa Park, was very well taken. And I think that San Diegans expect that there is some amount of public expressive and artistic performances. And I know that we are working towards creating the space for that, and knowing that the extent at which the First Amendment protects that is something that we're going to value and make sure we don't step over that line. What's hard is that the jurisprudence of First Amendment from the Supreme Court is not always clear-cut. And meeting those standards is not an easy thing to do. When you say something is inextricably intertwined with an expression of religious, political, philosophical, or ideological message, we can argue all day over what inextricable means and what intertwined means. So I ask the public to continue to share their perspective and their messages with my office, written, email, phone call, whatever it is, so that we can take your views into account. When it comes to issues in downtown, I am far, far less sympathetic for the rogue vendors who are quite actively violent against those who do have permits, those who are following every single rule for decades. You know, the Soto family is here, and I walk past them and talk with them on a regular basis. And to know the harm that they've gone through is unacceptable, and we wouldn't let any other small business have to face that. So we need to step up the protection of those who follow the rules appropriately and not be shy about saying we do that. And it doesn't matter if you're a two-person small business like the Soto family or you employ hundreds of people like the San Diego Padres. Downtown is definitely more dangerous because of our rogue vendors. So I am looking forward to how we're going to put an end to that. And that doesn't just affect those two businesses, it's all the others in between. The next hard discussion that I'm going to look at the details very carefully for is when it comes to beaches and parks near beaches. I think one of the details that I know you're all going to work it out, and we're going to see a draft when the time is appropriate after the conversations are had, is just what set of boundaries we're putting there. Shouldn't surprise anybody that vendors want to sell their products at the beach because that's where the crowds are. And that is a hard balance to know just how, and I think we try to meet that balance and how much space people were able to get so we could keep a sidewalk clear, so we can make sure that people who have disabilities can get to the beach, get to the park, go to the other businesses that are following the rules, that pay for insurance, pay their rent, pay any number of other regulatory costs, that we should try to honor that investment as well. So I'm in support of moving this forward today because I know that the conversation is still a long way to go. And I think that we're going to see a good outcome here the more you share your opinions and the more the city values the public safety and values the investment that people have put into following the rules. That is the atmosphere we have to create here. And then we have to make sure we don't step over the boundary of following the rules as the government for those who are putting out their pure speech, their art, their expressing religious and political and philosophical and ideological messages in protected spaces, or not protected spaces, but deeply valued spaces for the entire region. So, Councilmember Campbell, thank you for continuing to lead on this issue that practically no council member has ever tried to find the best solution, and continue to look forward to see what your office puts forward. And I'll support the motion today.
Thank you so much. I have a real quick question for the mayor's office, and that is, yes, downtown really, we really need your help with the police department there, and we're very grateful to them. We're grateful to the park rangers. We will be working with them as well to make it very clear steps to be followed. However, we will not put up with people who are rude to them, and that's another thing that's good about our amendments is that we're going to make it easier for there to be enforcement. Enforcement is key to this. If it's not properly enforced, it isn't going to work. And I want to, as a person who represents a lot of beaches, I want to speak also for District 1 this time, because they have a lot of beaches too, in District 1 and District 2. And I just want all our people to also know that they too will be protected, that the police and the park rangers will be involved, and we will make sure that they will make sure that the rules are followed. And I would like to hear from you about what your office would say.
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Campbell. That's absolutely correct. Our park rangers and our police officers will be working to ensure enforcement activities at our parks and beaches, particularly along our coastal areas, are followed, and that folks know and are properly educated about not just the existing sidewalk vending ordinance, but any amendments that may be coming soon to come. One thing that I will say, and we'll highlight, this is in the spirit of some of the comments that Councilmember Campillo just made, is that our Parks and Recreation Department is working to address some of the First Amendment issues along our coastal areas by designating First Amendment zones. That is a proposal that is currently in development and undergoing community feedback, and we'd be happy to share that with you when we bring this if this motion passes and we bring this to full council.
Thank you so much. So I want to ensure everyone throughout the city, we're here to help and we're here to make sure that things get enforced. So I want to thank Councilmember Whitburn for a second to my motion, and we'll now use the voting screen to take the vote.
Thank you, and Chair, that passes 3-0 with Vice Chair Elo Rivera absent.
Great, thank you so much. And Natalie, please introduce item number 2.
Item number 2, San Diego Public Library Master Plan. If you're in person, please be sure to have your speaker slip submitted, and if you are watching on City TV or the live stream online and would like to call into the meeting to speak, please call 1-6